13 years after Mark Ruffalo's MCU debut as the Hulk in the Avengers, the story of how Robert Downey Jr. helped convince the actor to take on the role seems all the more significant, and I can't believe I didn't know about it sooner. Iron Man and the Hulk are two of the most famous figures in Marvel's comic history, and the same can be said for their MCU timeline counterparts. As such, the casting of both roles was paramount, with Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo taking on some of the most focal figures in the MCU's Infinity Saga. Now, most of the original MCU Avengers are dead or retired, with Iron Man himself included. Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is in an arguably more important position than ever, making the matter of whether the character will appear in the story of Avengers Doomsday all the more interesting and pertinent at this time. However, it's interesting to note that this is far from the first time Ruffalo's path as the Hulk has been uncertain-looking, since the actor has commented on his initial doubts and uncertainty about whether he'd pick up the role for the first Avengers movie itself to begin with. While Mark Ruffalo playing the Hulk seems inherently par for the course over a decade into the MCU timeline, since he's appeared as the character in so many installments between the beginning of the franchise and now, and seen the Hulk through a considerable arc during this time, things weren't as definite before the actor's debut as Bruce Banner in the Avengers. Ruffalo himself explained as much in a 2020 interview for The Late Show with Jimmy Fallon, commenting that this makes a lot of sense given both the position of the MCU at this time and the Hulk's own trajectory within it. With Edward Norton's portrayal of the Hulk in 2008's The Incredible Hulk setting a precedent for the franchise and suggesting what the role of the MCU Hulk could be like, it's easy to see how this could make the prospect of taking on the role more daunting, because the two different versions of the role were bound to be compared given how close together they would be, and because the role was already defined in some ways. Similarly, 2008's The Incredible Hulk depicted a far more serious version of the Hulk than ended up appearing in the Avengers and onwards in the MCU. Without the context of what the future could hold, and a prior movie that suggested a considerably different depiction of the Hulk to what we got was on the horizon, it's understandable that Ruffalo would have had questions and uncertainties when looking at the idea of playing the character at this point of the process. During this period of uncertainty, Mark Ruffalo described getting a call from Robert Downey Jr., who had already become the MCU's Iron Man at this point in the franchise's real-world release timeline, to talk to him about potentially becoming the franchise's Hulk. According to Mark Ruffalo, the conversation provided some significant encouragement in terms of convincing him to accept the role during a period of time where he was going back and forth about it, with Ruffalo explaining that given Downey Jr.'s prominence in the MCU even this early on, this certainly makes sense, as getting a proverbial stamp of approval from an actor who'd already had considerable success with the superhero movie genre, and with the MCU more specifically, certainly could be seen to have boded well even before the franchise properly kicked off with the crossover success of the Avengers. Similarly, knowing another major MCU actor thought Ruffalo was the right pick for the character could potentially have also helped deal with any concerns in that regard. That said, this doesn't appear to have been the complete end of Ruffalo's decision-making process, as he explained that what cemented his belief he could be the right person for the Hulk gig was reading a few pages of the Avengers script, which allowed the actor to see the different iteration of the Hulk the MCU was aiming for and get a better sense of how he could handle the character. However, from his own comments, it seems the phone call with Downey Jr. was a notable turning point in things and encouraged him to further consider the role. Looking back now, it's hard to imagine anyone else in Mark Ruffalo and Robert Downey Jr.'s roles as the Hulk and Iron Man, respectively, in the MCU installments they appear in.